Hi, welcome. I'm Nira Berry, happiness and life coach, and your host of Happy and Healthy, where we always explore and discover all the many ways of keeping you feeling happy and healthy. And don't forget to stay to my Good to Know segment at the end of the show, where I've always got something good to share with you. And so today we're going to do something a little different, a little bit more serious topic, but I feel like it's something really important for us to know about. And it's about for domestic violence victims and their children and how they can be helped. And so please welcome my guest today, Secretary of State John Wobensmith. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And also the director of the Maryland Safe at Home program, Ann Hoyer. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here. Yeah, I think it's a very important topic, and I feel like somebody, whether or not somebody's experiencing domestic violence, or maybe they know somebody that is fleeing, or neighbor, it seems like a lot of people are touched by it in some way or another, and so I feel like it's an important topic to speak about and what can be done to help them. If somebody is fleeing from a domestic violence situation with their children, what are the first things that they might want to do?
Well, I would say one of the first things, of course, is to report it to the police, and to try to get with people that are able to give you access into programs like our address confidentiality program.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit more about that program?
Sure. It was begun in 2006 by the Maryland General Assembly, and placed under the Secretary of State's office to be run from there. I got there 5 years ago. And when I arrived 5 years ago, Ann Hoyer had been there for about a year, running the program before we arrived. It turned out that Ann was the only person doing the work for literally almost 1,000 people that are in our program. Wow. And we very quickly addressed that by expanding the program out considerably. So Ann now has 7 people, a total of 7 in her organization that are working specifically on this address confidentiality program.
Wow. So could you tell me, like, what is it?
Sure. What the program is, it's designed and works to protect people who are at risk. Mm-hmm. At risk from domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual assault, or anything like those kinds of issues. And they can get in our program in that they have to actually physically move to a new location that's not known by the person that's the aggressor against the victim. And then we become the address of record for them. So all of the mail, all their first-class mail gets delivered to us, and we then address it to the secret address. So we forward the mail on, and that's all for free. Mm-hmm. And also, as part of that, what we're trying to do is get people completely off the public record. So their driver's licenses will have our address. Mm. Their voting address will be our address. For their children's schools, where they want to enroll schools. So anything at all that would be in the public that someone could search and try to find you by your address, you won't find it if you're into our program.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Ann, has that been a problem? That this is why this program came about. That obviously has been a serious issue, right? Uh-huh.
So, as the Secretary stated, this program was incepted in 2006. One of the reasons behind the address confidentiality coming to play was Mary Kane, who was the Secretary of State at the time, back in 2006. There was a woman in Maryland, I believe her name was Yvette Cade, in Prince George's County, and she was doused with gasoline by her ex. He came in, doused her, and set her on fire, burned her almost 90% of her body, I believe. So that's really what prompted Mary Kane to say, we need something to assist these people so they can't be found. There were other programs already established throughout the country, address confidentiality programs. I believe there's about 43 to date. So as she did some research and found out that there were address confidentiality programs, she said, I want this here under the Secretary of State's office. And that's how it all began.
Wow.
So, and I came on board, as the Secretary said, well, the Secretary's been 5 years. I was there a year ahead. So I've been there for 6 years, and we have increased security with our program. Secretary spearheaded actually an effort to take all of our information and take that offline, which means that that data cannot be tapped into from the public. So that was something that the secretary implemented since I've been there. So we've made a lot of big efforts, legislative efforts as well, and I can leave that to the secretary to talk about that with the deed shielding. That was our first big kind of win to close some gaps in the address confidentiality program.
Oh.
Yeah, Ann came to me one day and she said, you know, I just talking with one of our participants, and she said, oh, Ann, I'm so excited because I'm buying a house. And Ann said, oh my gosh, do you know what that means? And because she said she was pretty far along in the process. And she said, that means that you're now, your address will be able to be found by someone. And so Ann said, you know, we really got to address that issue. And I said, you're absolutely right. So we put together a work group, which was authorized by the governor and by the General Assembly. And we brought everybody together. We brought the bankers and anybody that would have anything to do with real estate.
It started with a punch while I was asleep one evening. And then everything went downhill from there. It never got better, it always got worse.
Imagine fearing for your life, for your children's lives. So much you won't show your face or share your real name. That's the fear of a woman who asked to be called Faith.
I've been through a lot of difficulties, which I think a lot of women have been through, and it's only been my faith in God that has allowed me to sustain and to keep peace through very tumultuous seasons of my life.
When her ex put a knife to her throat in front of her children, Faith decided she had to get out of this marriage.
For me, that was the turning point, because I said, you know, that someone's going to get killed.
Faith got a protective order and started divorce proceedings, but the terror continued.
I had a 5-bedroom house. I had over 4,000 square feet, and yet I slept on a couch in the family room facing the front door. And so that was my small way of trying to protect myself and my children as we slept at night. And that's what I did for about a year.
Faith thought the courts would be her salvation.
There were 66 different criminal and family court proceedings. His parental rights were ultimately terminated to all 3 of our children, and so that's where we stand today. He never did any jail time.
And because he knew her address, Faith made the decision to move across the country to flee her abuser. That's when she learned about Maryland's Safe at Home Address Confidentiality Program, ACP for short. Ann Hoyer is the program's director. Legislated in 2006, the ACP works to give crime victims something abusers have taken from them, a right to feel safe behind closed doors. The dream of home ownership now a real possibility for Faith and other survivors who can once again live life.
I'm very comfortable being outside of my home on my property, doing my gardening. I'm comfortable walking to my mailbox and getting my mail. I'm comfortable taking a walk in the neighborhood if I want to. I'm comfortable getting to know my neighbors, and that's a marked change in my life.
What started as a journal has turned into a book that is now in the final stages of editing. Thanks to the ACP program, Faith's family is thriving.
It's wonderful right now. I'm employed and the children are going to school and they're happy and they have outside extracurricular pursuits. But there's always hope. Keep faith, there's always hope.
That was very interesting about Faith, that was in the video. And can you tell me a little bit more about?
Sure. So Faith, as you saw in the video, escaped her abuser, a very violent abuser, went across the country, found out about our program. Was happy to do so because that allowed her to live without looking over her shoulder and keeping her and her children safe. We have many people in our program just like Faith. The majority of the people in the program are women and children. However, we do have some men, the men that were brave enough to come forward and admit to domestic violence, and I think that's something that we really should hone in on as well.
Yeah, it's not just women.
Correct. So yeah, we do have a mix of people, but we're very proud of the fact that these people now, that when they call the office and they talk to the staff at the Safe at Home program, I can't tell you that there isn't a week that goes by that they call and they say thank you. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for doing this program.
Must be very rewarding.
Absolutely, 1,000%.
Because you're not just helping the adults, but also the children.
Exactly.
And what a difference you make in their lives.
Sure.
It's, in their
And
futures.
we have 1,139 people currently, as of today, in the program.
Wow.
That are safe.
Yeah.
And able to carry out their lives as was described earlier.
Absolutely, and I think that it was mentioned, or I read on your website that it was overall you've helped, I think, over 2,400 people.
Just about. Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Since
so that's
the program.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's not just for domestic violence. It's also I think
human trafficking victims, sexual assault, stalking victims. Pretty much at this point, any crime victim, someone who fears for their safety and has fled.
Wow, and is there any cost associated with this?
There isn't, and the way that victims can actually find the Safe at Home is my staff goes out and they train a bunch of advocates around Maryland, including the state's attorney's office, including lawyers, judges, clerks of the courts, anybody that would actually come in contact with the victim. We try to get out there and talk about our program, give them an understanding of the program, and show these advocates too who are meeting with victims on how to fill out the application to our program.
Well, that's great. I want to get back to that. So we just have to take a short break. My name is Nira Berry, host of Happy and Healthy, and stay tuned for our next segment. We'll be right back.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual, and she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you."
Welcome back. I'm Nira Berry, the host of Happy and Healthy, and we're continuing speaking with Secretary of State John Wobensmith and Ann Hoyer, who's the director of the ACP program. So, Ann, you were saying about what the process is, filling out applications?
So the staff, the Safe at Home staff, go out and they train advocates that are meeting with victims and providing also additional safety measures, because the address confidentiality program, we're just one part of an entire safety plan. It's important for victims to remember that. They have to be very diligent in other ways as well. However, we do go out and we do train these advocates, and so they know about our program. So for instance, if you have someone assisting a victim, let's say at the House of Ruth, and they come in and they're talking with this person, and this person is there with their child and says, "I'm fleeing my abuser, I'm going to get an apartment, where he doesn't know where I'm going to be," what have you, then that would prompt that person who's helping them to go, "Oh, okay, well, this would be a great person to qualify for the address confidentiality program." At that point in time, that advocate would assist them with the application process. It would come over to our office. We would look to see for additional qualifications to make sure that this is a good fit for the program. If it is, then we accept them into the program, send them all the material they need, and give them all, the advice that we can give them on the specific program.
Okay, and I like the fact that I also read that that you also kind of serve as like a hub.
We do, because we're the only ones in the state of Maryland that actually provides the service. So we're going to all these different places because all of these different places need to know us. We're the kind of the connector, because there's a lot of advocacy groups in Maryland that do the same kind of work. We are a standalone. That's what kind of makes us a hub. Yeah,
I like that. So, Secretary, can you tell me about the different entities that are and how that works? If they have to accept that, right?
They do. Again, by the law, both the government, state and local, but also private entities. So your cable companies, your telephone company, anybody, any of your utility companies, they have to, again, abide by that. And they have to protect your information as well. Mm-hmm. So it's something that is
kind of closing that loop,
yeah, closing the loop.
Closing the loop,
Closing
yeah.
the loop, right. And I think one of the great things, the opportunity of being here with you today, is that we know that many people don't know about our program, and that even includes sometimes the courts, sometimes the police, mm-hmm. and so it's important to get the information out about this. Really is a protected program, mm-hmm. and that you have to abide by the rules.
Yeah, and also for different businesses, and
exactly.
if they're buying a home, and the different records without public records, as you
right.
mentioned,
and we help on that, and,
mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things. The neat thing about having the numbers of people that we have now in Ann's program is that we are able to give a lot more advice and give a lot more hands-on activity with people that are mm-hmm. involved in the program to protect them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's wonderful. It's something that. That it's probably a long time in coming, and so I'm so glad that that you've worked on this, and I know that you've formed a work group that really focuses on this.
Again, the governor and the legislature approved us putting together a work group specifically talking about child custody, because again, Ann has told me many stories. Or did tell me many stories about problems that we had with children, protecting the children, which is the most important part of all of this.
That's real
and
key.
In child custody battles, it gets to be sometimes really, really difficult for the child. And it's both psychological and even physical. And in fact, we've had a number of children across the country, literally hundreds of children that have been killed over the years by one of the spouses.
Such a shame.
In a custody dispute.
Yeah, you hear about it on the news.
Well, even in Maryland, in 2015, we had 2 children that were killed, in this case by their mothers. But it is a serious problem, and it often comes down to the fact that when judges are looking at custody battles, they make determinations. Sometimes that they want to make sure that both parents are involved, even though one of the parents may have been molesting the child or physically harming the child. And so what we're finding is that the court system is having difficulties in dealing with this. And that's why the work group was set up to let's look at this and see how we can do it in a better way.
Yeah, I read up on that, and it showed how, there's, I believe it was the Myers study, and it analyzed the trial court's decisions on over 4,000 child custody cases, and how it ruled like almost against the mother, because the judges felt like the mothers were alienating the family.
It does indeed. Jan, you want to talk a little bit about that, Ann?
So that was Professor Jen Myers with George Washington University, and you're very correct. She did this study, and it did show that in most of these cases, when allegations of abuse arose in the family court system, that mothers were losing custody.
How does that happen?
When they alleged abuse. Because one of the theories is, and it is only that, that the other side, if there's allegations of abuse, the other side will come in and say, oh no, this is parental alienation syndrome, which is not a real syndrome. It's been debunked several times. it was never even anything scientific. It was junk science.
And what is that supposed to mean? That they're...
It means that the mother, in most of these cases, I use mother, but in some cases it is the father, that the mother's alleging abuse only to keep the child away from the other parents. So they call that the parental alienation. So that's a real problem. Because we do know that most people who are making these allegations, they're true. They're true. Unfortunately, our court system is not equipped and does not have the toolbox to be able to navigate through these very complex cases, particularly in sexual abuse cases. You really need an expert, just like any of us would if we went to the doctor, to our regular primary care physician, and if we had something that was ailing us and the doctor didn't understand or know, what would they do? They would send it to a specialist. So it's very important, particularly when we're talking about children's lives, sexual abuse. And not only could they be, the judge could rule a lifetime of abuse if they give access to this alleged abuser without doing their homework, or not even that, understanding what they're looking at and what they're hearing. So it's really important that we, the ones that are on the front lines, right? The children's psychologist, the therapist, the people who have the credibility and the credentials, quite frankly, to be able to provide the tools. I think it's really important we learn from them because the judges aren't experts in this field. And it's also to protect the judges, right? We don't want to ruin their lives either. When they make a decision and that child dies. So it's twofold. I think this is common sense. I know this is common sense.
I was just going to say that this makes perfect sense, and it is common sense. If you go, like you mentioned, you go to the doctor for a heart ailment, a general practitioner will send you to a specialist because it's just out of his realm of knowledge and of experience. And so it just really does make perfect sense, and that's.
And the other thing we heard about from victims during our work group meetings that we have, which by the way we're open to the public and we're live streamed as well. But one of the things that we did hear was the horrible expense that takes place within that. We had one lady not too long ago who was talking about how she had to pay $250,000 for one of the experts that was analyzing it, appointed by the court, but had to analyze. She paid $250,000. Many of them said in custody battles, it can cost them $500,000. And so it's really difficult. And by the way, another thing I think we should say is it affects all levels of our society.
Yeah,
it's
not everybody
not
can
poor
afford
people,
it,
but it's everybody, whether it's rich or poor.
Right.
And often in the rich examples, sometimes the one party will in fact use the court system to actually bleed the money away and cause all the fees and legal costs that go as part of that. So they end up being bankrupt. The one party ends up being bankrupt. We've heard that many, many times.
The financial abuse of that.
Because the other party can't afford to keep going to court.
Right.
So that's a very good point, that this affects all different people in all different parts of our society.
Right.
Because this happens whether or not it's domestic violence or stalking or anything that can happen in any aspect. And
by the way, there was one other thing I was going to tell you related to that is one of the things that we did recently is we had some discussion with the Mexican ambassador in Washington about our program.
The Mexican ambassador?
The Mexican ambassador, and she was very interested in this particular program that we're doing, and she said, we have a lot of Mexican Americans that live in Maryland that really could use your help. And so I signed an agreement with the Mexican Consul General in Washington for us to provide that kind of training. And that's actually going to start tomorrow with 6 people from the consulate.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's because everywhere needs this kind of help.
And the other thing I would mention as well is we are multi-language capable as well. So particularly Spanish, we have a person that's absolutely fluent in Spanish.
Wonderful.
And so we're able to. It's again a community that needs to be talked to, and often is hard to break into.
Wonderful. So. If somebody wanted to find out more information, can you give me the what website they should contact?
Ann?
Well, the easiest way to go about it is just going to the Maryland Secretary of State's website.
Okay.
You will see the icon at the top that says Safe at Home. Click on the Safe at Home button. There a video will be shown, more of the video, extension of that video with Faith. and then learn the ins and outs of our program and how to get a hold of us. And please, we're happy to serve.
Yeah, well, I thank you both for working on this very important topic and very important concern in our community, and not just here but elsewhere. I mean, this is something that's all over the world, as we spoke about, and so I wish you the best of luck with it and helping people, and I know that many good things are going to come from your working together, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time today for filling us in and our audience about this important program. So thank you so much, Secretary Wobensmith and Hoyer. I appreciate the Director of ACP for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm Nira
Nira.
Berry. Thank you. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, and stay tuned for our next segment of Good to Know. We'll be right back.
After you joined our family, it was like, I really do feel complete now.
Now it's time for my Good to Know segment. I'm Nira Berry, the happiness coach, and as part of my series on success in work and in life, I'm going to share with you the importance of feeling safe and how that can impact your stress levels, health, and overall happiness and success. There are many paths to tools and happiness, and creating a safe space for ourselves is essential, whether it's physical or emotional safety. Feeling safe means being self-assured and ditching that self-doubt. It means waking up in the morning and deeply knowing that you deserve to live in a safe space and have the happiness that it brings. Feeling safe can also mean safety in the home where you live, the people you interact with in your office, or in your family. You can do a few things to help create a greater sense of safety, like trying to get enough sleep, eat well, exercise regularly, and hang out with those who really have your best interest at heart. And by the way, this is a tip that you can benefit from for just about every aspect of your life, right? I mean, eating right and getting enough sleep. So one of the things that you can do is ending relationships with those who belittle you. Anybody that makes fun of you, maybe even sabotaging your work, and are not trustworthy. So stand up for yourself and create boundaries. And maybe you have to make some changes in your life, but don't put up with that. But at the same time, don't go to extremes. Isolating yourself and putting up walls isn't a good idea. As scary as it is, you have to open the door and let the sun shine through, right? You can also try to eradicate that feeling of vulnerability. Develop certain routines and habits that make you feel included in your community or circle of friends. And being part of a stable group is a way to make you feel more confident in the world. So think about the moments when you have felt safe and write about them. Recalling them will help you move towards that warm feeling. You see, our brains are wired to notice and remember the things that are wrong. It's a survival mechanism that's helped keep us, even from the times of cave dwelling. Our ancestors were safe in the world where there were many physical threats on them. But in today's comparatively safe world, this biological predisposition to focus on the negative contributes to stress and unhappiness. So we can train our brains to be more positive. You don't have to ignore reality or pretend that things are wonderful even when they're not. Of course not. But just as dwelling on the negative, and the negative things fuels unhappiness and plays a big role in depression and anxiety, choosing to notice and appreciate and anticipate goodness is a powerful happiness booster. It's a real powerful tool. So write those good things down and discover what unconditional love really means and apply it to yourself, accepting that you are not perfect, and that's okay. But write down all those good things. And you'll see that when you feel more secure with yourself and your surroundings, you will feel more positive and better able to focus on the task at hand. And as a result, you'll be more successful in every aspect of your life. You'll be winning in life. So let me know if you've tried this. You can contact me, Nira Berry, the happiness coach, at info@niraberry.com. So I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching Happy and Healthy. I'm Nira Berry, your host, and I hope you have a happy day.